The 1440s. Mainz, Germany. Johannes Gutenberg stood in the dim light of his workshop. In his hands, a small block of lead. But this was no ordinary piece of metal. It was about to become the instrument that would change the course of human history. What was running through his mind in that moment? The records tell us that Gutenberg had spent at least a decade, perhaps more, in relentless trial and error, including years of hardship in Strasbourg, experimenting with metalworking and the mechanics of the press. He burned through his fortune. He faced lawsuits from his own partners, and still he returned to his workshop. Why? Because he knew. Knowledge is power, and he believed he was the one who could shatter the chains that bound it. Picture Europe before the printing press existed. To produce a single illuminated Bible, a monk would labor for years, writing every word by hand. A grueling, multi-stage process that could consume even more time. Letter by letter, quill on parchment. And what was the consequence? Handwritten manuscripts were so costly they were luxuries, far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Knowledge belonged only to those with power. Royalty, the clergy, the nobility. Even the ability to read and write was a privilege of the few. This was the world before 1440. Knowledge was held captive, deliberately, systematically. Gutenberg's genius lay not in a single invention. He united four elements into one. Movable type, individual letter blocks, cast from metal, rearranged endlessly to compose any text imaginable. But here is a crucial truth. Metal type itself had precedent in East Asia. Gutenberg's true innovation was the mold system, a method that allowed type to be cast in unlimited quantities with perfect uniformity. A wooden screw press that delivered consistent, even pressure. Oil-based ink that transferred cleanly, sharply onto paper. Drawing on existing technologies, Gutenberg forged them into something entirely new, a practical system for mass production. The result was staggering. Identical pages reproduced far faster than any scriptorium could dream of, and the speed at which knowledge could flow through the world was transformed forever. 1455. Gutenberg touched the finished pages of his Bible. Around 180 copies, most on paper, a few on vellum. He must have understood what this moment meant. The Gutenberg Bible was offered at a lower price than handwritten manuscripts. Yet it was still a luxury, worth roughly the price of a house. The true collapse in price would come just a little later. Of those approximately 180 copies, around 50 survive to this day. Some complete, some fragmentary, paper and vellum alike. They are now counted among the most precious books in the world. But what Gutenberg truly printed was not a Bible. He printed possibility itself. The press transformed the marketplace. As supply grew, prices fell. Books flooded the world. Over decades and centuries, prices dropped. Access expanded beyond anything previously imaginable. The first to benefit were the clergy, universities, and the wealthy merchant class of the cities. In time, urban merchants and craftsmen could hold books in their hands. Knowledge that had once belonged to kings began flowing towards citizens. Knowledge was no longer a monopoly. By 1500, an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 editions of early printed works had been produced across Europe, with total copies running into the tens of millions. Consider that number. Tens of millions of copies in just 50 years since the press became practical. More than all the books produced in Europe across the previous 1,000 years combined. Something was beginning to shift. When books become affordable, more people learn. When more people learn, the need to teach grows. When teaching expands, schools multiply. Literacy was deeply uneven across regions. The gap between rural and urban, between men and women, between one land and another, was vast. But as printed material spread and schooling expanded, the number of literate people, especially in the cities, began to climb. This was no mere cultural shift. People could now read for themselves, which meant they could now think for themselves. And what waited on the other side of that threshold? October 31st, 1517. Wittenberg. Martin Luther published his 95 Theses, a challenge to the Church, a protest against the sale of indulgences, an invitation to theological debate. In an earlier age, what would have become of this document? A handful of handwritten copies passed among fellow theologians, and then silence. The weight of Rome would have crushed it. But in 1517, there was a printing press. Within weeks, copies spread across the land. The debate could no longer be contained. Within months, all of Europe knew. Luther himself is said to have declared, "Printing is the ultimate gift of God, the one by which he chose to spread the gospel." By the 1520s, Luther's writings and related pamphlets were being printed in massive numbers, flooding across the continent in a matter of months. Nothing like it had ever happened before. The church fought back, but its counter-arguments spread on the very same presses. The debate itself had been made public, and that was the greatest revolution of all. In the age when knowledge was monopolized, truth descended from above. The clergy interpreted. The faithful had no choice but to believe. But now, urban craftsmen and merchants could read Luther's German pamphlets with their own eyes. For the first time, some among the laity had room to judge for themselves. Authority began to tremble. But not everyone was celebrating. Those who held power were not. The clergy maintained their authority through the monopoly on knowledge. As long as ordinary people couldn't read the Latin Bible themselves, the clergy's interpretation was the only truth. The printing press shattered that. Archbishop Berthold of Mainz issued a censorship decree in 1486, seeking to control unlicensed printed material. In certain corners of the church, the press was labeled a technology of chaos, to be feared and suppressed. Rulers across the continent moved swiftly to tighten control over publishing. What they feared was not paper. It was the loss of control over information itself. When power loses its monopoly on information, it begins to erode. Whether Gutenberg foresaw any of this, we cannot know. But history has delivered its verdict on what he set in motion. And the press did not stop at religion. In 1543, Nicholas Copernicus published On the Revolutions of the Celestial Spheres. The claim that the Earth moves around the sun, a vision of the cosmos that struck at the very foundations of church doctrine. Others may have harbored similar thoughts before him. But without the press, those thoughts would have died with the men who held them. Because of the press, Copernicus reached scholars across all of Europe. The published theory built upon Galileo's astronomical arguments, and by 1687 had accumulated into Newton's Principia. Knowledge could now accumulate layer upon layer through the press. One discovery became the foundation for the next. That was the architecture of the scientific revolution. 1500, roughly 50 years since Gutenberg had established his technology. Across Europe, an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 editions of early printed works had been produced. Their total copies numbered in the tens of millions. What does that mean? More than all the books that had existed in Europe across the previous 1,000 years. In just 50 years, it was the moment knowledge accelerated faster than at any other point in human history. As the flow of knowledge expanded, the pace of change surged with it. And those who gained access to knowledge were transformed. More people could read. More people could argue, debate, and reason. More people could question authority. This is what it means to have liberated hundreds of millions of minds. Gutenberg did not ignite the Reformation. He did not plan the scientific revolution. He did not envision the Enlightenment. He simply set out to print books efficiently, reliably, at scale. But the system he built triggered a chain reaction that would echo across 500 years. The Reformation, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, the philosophical bedrock of democracy, the spread of technology that fueled the Industrial Revolution. Behind all of it, the printing press. As the flow of knowledge expands, the pace of change accelerates. That was the single truth Gutenberg proved. The most fundamental power of humanity is the capacity to think. And thought, left untransmitted, dies. So let me ask you something. The printing press fixed knowledge in place and shared it with the many. But some argue that today's digital screens, flooding us with endless, restless information, may be stealing the very time we need to think deeply. In Gutenberg's age, those who held a book for the first time held it with reverence, with hunger. If you had lived in that era, if that first book had been placed in your hands, how carefully would you have read every word? And in this age of boundless knowledge, is there one book that has truly changed your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for witnessing this moment in history with me. The liberation of knowledge that began with a printing press, it has never stopped. Here on Turning Point History, we bring you face to face with the turning points of human civilization and the inner world of those who dared to decide. If you want to be there for the next moment, history changed forever, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the story. See you in the next one.